Spent some time last hour with Charles Barkley. He's still not sure what the future of Inside the NBA on TNT is. This man can give us better insights. Mike McCarthy, senior reporter for Front Office Sports, columnist for Tuned In Sports Media. Mike joins us on the program. We keep hearing that the deals aren't done yet, that TNT still has a chance to keep the NBA rights. Can you update us?
Well, Dan, I think the game is about on the 10-yard line now. It's certainly heading in the direction of NBC and Amazon picking up the rights while ESPN keeps the package. On the other hand, TNT still has matching rights, and there hasn't been an official offer to match yet. So we're still kind of in a waiting stage. I don't think it's going to happen this week, certainly before Memorial Day, but it is close. But as they say, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. So we're not there yet.
I was wondering, and I brought this up to Charles, could they just start their own production company and continue to shoot the NBA and have it in Atlanta? Everybody stays there. You have the crew that stays, and then you outsource that to NBC.
Dan, I love that idea. I mean, get creative. We're at a time right now where the talent is flexing and going independent, following the model set by yourself years ago, and more recently by Pat McAfee and Stephen A. with his own production company. So I think it's a fantastic idea. As a matter of fact, the first time I heard the idea was from your own producer, Paul, who tweeted it out weeks ago. So I think if, Sir Charles does this, your show should get a finder's fee, Dan.
Okay, so this hasn't been finalized yet, but I'm looking at the bigger picture with the NBA. We're going to have an $80 million a year player by the year 2030. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, by projections, will top out at $81 million in his final year. How is this sustainable with players making 60, 70, 80 million? And how long will it be before we have a $100 million player?
I think it's sustainable because you've got these big streaming companies coming in. Everybody's looking at them, Dan, as these sugar daddies who are going to pay for these, huge media rights that maybe the traditional broadcasters can't afford anymore. The NBA is a global league, so it gets global media rights. I mean, one of the things that people don't realize about Amazon is Amazon's already in business with the NBA. They've got the NBA in Brazil. So they have a relationship that goes back years. So I think people are trying to bet on these big streamers as the future sugar daddies of the sport.
If Charles Barkley becomes a free agent, finish that sentence.
Most expensive, most sought after free agent in sports television history. And I'd love to see his LinkedIn profile, Dan, because it should say that the funniest, most entertaining analyst in history. By the way, it was a great interview. Charles was off the hook, and everybody would go after him. ESPN has been lusting after the Chuckster for 20 years. Amazon would back up the Brinks truck. NBC, everybody would want him.
I wonder, though, how his style, what he says, his opinions would play on ESPN ABC, since they've had a lot of turmoil at ESPN with people saying things, not being politically correct, or going against company policy here.
Yeah, I think Jimmy Pitaro is loosening the reins there, Dan. I mean, when I look at some of the things that McAfee gets away with, I can't believe it. I mean, he took a shot at Norby. You know Norby. He was one of those powerful guys in sports for 40 years. He took him down on ESPN's own air. So I think, they welcomed Charles with open arms. Even Stephen A. said on his show last night, he does not want to see Inside the NBA go off the air. It's just too good.
How good a month has the WNBA had?
Fantastic. Caitlin Clark has brought all sorts of new viewers. Ratings are up. Attendance is up. And I'll tell you, Dan, what's really important for the WNBA is the timing of this. They're also going for their own media deal right now, along with the NBA. So I think Kathy Engelbert is going to be able to double, triple the rights fees that they used to get, because the rights fee they're getting right now, frankly, are a joke.
Well, also, and I don't know if you can liken this, I don't know if it's apples to apples, when Gretzky came to the LA Kings, Caitlin Clark going to the WNBA, it's like now they talk of expansion. Now you have other cities that say we'd like to be in the WNBA business. Just like when Wayne came to the Kings, there were a lot of cities, your Florida teams, they wanted to have hockey franchises because Wayne Gretzky was, in the United States.
You're right. I mean, I was living in LA, 20, 30 years ago when, he revolutionized the sport. And all of a sudden, kids who never heard of hockey, wanted to play ice hockey. So you're right. One player can have that kind of seismic impact on a sport and a league. And I think you're seeing it right now with Caitlin Clark.
We've also looked at, it looks like the commissioner would be toying with, if there's an 18-game schedule, then we get to President's Weekend, then you get that holiday off. And we've been saying that for years. It makes sense. The commissioner says, well, maybe, we're worried about player safety. Let's get rid of a couple of preseason games, and then you could add the 18th. Well, those two aren't connected, in my opinion, because the first two playoff games or preseason games, your stars don't play, and they try not to play in those games. It'll have nothing to do with player safety, with the players you really are counting on. An 18th game, that to me, that seems like it's a lot more serious than getting rid of two preseason games. But you see this as inevitable. The fact that the commissioner is talking about this now, though, Mike, that's where it feels like, let me put it out there. Let me get the reaction here. Yep. And they usually do that. It's a trial balloon.
Yeah, I mean, what the NFL wants, the NFL usually gets, Dan. It's just the way it is. I mean, look at the way they just steamrolled the NBA on Christmas Day. NBA, you can control Christmas Day. Goodell comes along and says, nope, not anymore. Look how they just create rights out of thin air, like these Netflix games. Did you see that, Dan? Yeah. They just pulled those games out of somebody's existing package, sold them to Netflix for $150 million, and told their loyal partners, screw you. So what the NFL wants, they get.
But also, if you look at, let's say they get to 18 games, let's say they push it back the Super Bowl, now they're going to affect the NBA All-Star game as well. So if I'm Adam Silver, I at least place a phone call to the commissioner, Roger Goodell, and say, Raj, can we kind of coexist here without you guys, dominating us, taking away our Christmas Day, now moving our All-Star game?
But the one good thing is that if that happens, Dan, the Super Bowl might be moved to President's Day weekend, and we can all get a day off after Super Bowl Sunday. But I think it was Barkley himself who said it on your show years ago that I think he was right on the money. He said the NBA should start on Christmas Day. Move the season, try to avoid the NFL as much as possible. Start the regular season on Christmas Day, and I think that was a great idea years ago, and I think it still is.
No, Mike. What Charles is saying is he doesn't work those first couple of months, and he gets to start on Christmas Day. You got to understand where it's coming from. Charles doesn't want to work. Hey, why don't we start on Christmas Day? All right. He doesn't want to work.
Yeah. I know. He's been retiring for 20 years, right, Dan?
Oh, I know. Never had a job. Hey, Mike, Thank you for joining us as always. Great work.
Thank you, Dan.
That's Michael McCarthy. He's a senior reporter, front office sports, also columnist for Tuned In Sports Media.